welcome back to my channel. My name is Jacob Jewett, and in today's video I've decided to take you through the tools and resources that I use when I'm preparing for a certification exam. Now, some of the tools and resources that I use do have costs behind them, but I have found that they are much cheaper than going to a career college that costs about $18,000 for 8 months of instruction, or going to your local bookstore where you pay upwards of about $69 and on up dollars for just a single textbook. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, Jacob, I'm watching your videos. Why do I need to go get a textbook or sign up for any of these resources? Well, I highly recommend that you use my videos as a supplement of, not a replacement for, actual studying of the certification exam. I have found that sometimes when you just read a book, you don't quite get it as you do when someone shows you what it is or explains it to you. So that's the purpose of my videos. They are not a replacement of actual training material. So that being said, in this video I'm going to take you first through the training material that I use when I am learning for a certification or putting a video together to be posted on YouTube. I'm then going to take you through how I read the book and how I take notes, and how I'm going to make those notes available to you. And finally, I'm going to take you through the tools that I use as far as how I simulate environments when studying. So enough of that, let's get going. The first tool I'm going to take you through is a site called Safari Books Online. This site for me has replaced me going to either Barnes & Noble or Amazon to pick up textbooks to learn from. Also, I find this site very useful as it can be used on an iPhone or an iPad and is a lot less heavy than carrying a big 1,000-page textbook from like Microsoft. So here's the site. The site is available at safaribooksonline.com, and as you see here, I have access to a lot of books. The book that I'm actually basing my first course off of, the A+ exam, is this cert guide here called the CompTIA A+ Cert Guide for the 220-901 and the 220-902. Now, this is again, official text, and as you see, when I go into the book, I actually have full access to the whole book. It is not someone took a bunch of scans of the book and put it online. These are official published copies. Now, this book, and I know this for a fact because I actually own this book, it costs around $69 for just that book. Now, if you're learning the A+ or getting ready for an exam, more than likely you're going to want to use multiple resources, not just one book. So what's nice about this is if I go up to the search bar here and I type in A+, and I put in 220-901, I should get a whole bunch of books back, and of course some videos on that exam. So if you look here, you have multiple resources, not just one book, but a lot of them, and it's endless the amount of books you can go through and study. So this site here is my #1 resource when studying. Now, when sometimes I'm reading a textbook and I still need some additional information, or I need it kind of explained to me simply, I also have this other site that I go to called Plural Site. Now, Plural Site is a video presentation site. So they have a lot of worksheets. They have a lot of videos on the subject that you may be studying. Again, if I use my example of A+ the 220-901, so A+ 220-901. Oh, I suck at typing. You will see that in here they also have a lot of material for studying. Now, do you need to go to Plural Site? Probably not. A lot of what my videos will contain is a lot of what you might find here. However, I do understand that not all people learn the same, and sometimes people get better experience from learning from different resources, so that you're not just looking at one thing, you're looking at multiple. I know me personally, I learn from all kinds of resources, not just the one book or the one video. So I'll take multiple books, I'll read the subject, and I'll compile it together to get the best information for me and to get what I need out of it, so that I know that, hey, I'm going to be successful in this exam. So when studying, this is typically how I have my screen set up. Usually on my left-hand side, I'll open up the book to the chapter that I'm currently reading, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, I'll set up Microsoft OneNote. Now, I use Microsoft software as far as Office products primarily when I'm studying or creating any kind of documentation. I do realize that there's a free version of OpenOffice out there. The problem is OpenOffice isn't typically used in business situations. So not only do I use this computer for creating content on YouTube, but I use it for work. And work requires that Office be used, or Microsoft Office be used. One thing I do have to say is Microsoft OneNote is one of the best note-taking softwares I've used. I've tried Evernote, I've tried a couple of the other softwares, but for some reason the way OneNote is designed and how it's laid out just works great for me. I can have my tabs set up, I can have it set up by the course I'm working on, by the chapter, so on and so forth. Now, a lot of the material that you'll find posted on my website is derived from my actual notes as I take them. And I will, as you see here, I will always cite information that I am gathering with a link to the actual book. Now, these links on my material will always point to Safari Books Online. Now, quick note, I do not get paid by Safari Books Online to advertise them at all. It's just, again, the #1 tool that I use when studying. So speaking of my website, here it is. You can find my website at jacobjewett.me. I also own .net and .info, so at any one of those root domains, you can find my website. I use this website to post my professional portfolio on, so you can not only go here to find some of the training material that I provide or the notes that I provide, you can go here also to learn about more about me and what qualifies me to do any kind of training whatsoever. But anyway, once you get past that, at the top here you'll find a tab called Training, and currently you'll see under there that it states that that's CompTIA A+, 220.901 and 220.902. I plan, as I create these videos, to post my material more and more under this tab, and I'll categorize it by whatever certification it's pertaining to, and there may be eventually archive, because I can only imagine this menu item will grow exponentially. So anyway, if you go under here and you click on CompTIA A+, 220.901, 902, you'll see that the notes that I showed in my last clip when I was showing OneNote are here. Now, I publish them in two ways. I publish them through my website in just plain text, and including the links and the references to the actual book, and so that you guys can look at the book and read the book and see what I'm getting at. Additionally, if I use any additional information that's not in the book that I show for that chapter, but I explain things further, I'll usually cite it in another book. For example, here you'll see that I have Scott Mueller's Upgrading and Repairing PCs, and I also have a link to it in Safari Books Online. Again, Safari Books Online, I always use it, so if you're following me in any way, shape, or form, more than likely my material is going to point to Safari Books Online. So as I said, I post my notes in two forms. I post them on the website, and I also post them as a downloadable. So you can go here and click, for example, the chapter 2, and click on it, and it'll open in your PDF viewer, and there it is for you. So again, as I prepare for these videos, I also make my notes, and I use these notes for creating my training material, just as if I was teaching in a classroom, because that's basically the idea behind this channel, is I'm treating it like I would treat my actual classroom when I used to teach in private colleges. So what you have gotten in my classroom, you're going to get on these YouTube channel videos. So I've shown you two sites. I've shown you Safari Books Online and Plural Site. And these sites, again, are sites that I use when I'm training. I do understand that there's other sites out there that will help you in learning A+ or certification, anything that you want to really learn, available out there. And some of them may be free, but I like to use official material usually. I like to know that the information I'm reading is correct. That's part of the reason why I have like a disclaimer at the beginning of my videos. That disclaimer is there to basically tell you, hey, I'm giving you this information, but don't rely on it 100% because it's not official. So hopefully you find my videos helpful. But again, I always recommend that you use official resources when studying for an exam. So now you've seen the sites that I use as far as the content I use to study for certification, and also how I take notes using OneNote. So again, I use two sites. I use Safari Books Online, and I use Plural Site interchangeably when studying. And take my notes in OneNote. Now, the thing that I've always gone through with my students is how I personally read a book. And I've come up with this method because it works for me, and it everything sticks when I read it this way. Now, I used to tell my students that I read a book 5 times. And I actually do, but I have found that some people get kind of worn out trying to read a book or read a chapter 5 times. So what I've kind of whittled it down to, and I find that still helps out my students quite a bit, is reading the book or the chapter 3 times. And this is how I usually break it down. So what I'll do is the first time I read through a chapter, I'll read the chapter as if I'm like just mindlessly blowing through it. So I'll take the chapter, let's say chapter 1 of A+ or whatever, and I'll read through it, and I'll try to understand what I'm taking in, but I'm not concerning myself with taking a ton of notes and terribly worried about the information as I'm reading it. Once I'm done with the chapter, I won't touch the questions at the end or anything like that, but I'll go back to the beginning of the chapter, and I take a notepad, or I'll take OneNote, and I'll copy the objectives at the beginning of the chapter. And objectives are easy to find because it says right under objectives what the objectives are. So I'll take those objectives and I'll change them into questions. So I'll remove the period and I'll add a question mark. That simple. Then I'll begin reading the chapter yet again. And what I'll do is when I'm reading the chapter this time, I will actually try to answer the questions or answer the objectives as I go through the chapter. And I'm actively looking for the information that I'm needing to take in. because obviously the objectives of the chapter is exactly that, what you're supposed to take in or what you're supposed to learn from the chapter. Once I'm done with reading through the chapter and answering the objectives, I will then look at the review questions at the end of the chapter and do my best to honestly answer them without looking back at the chapter. So I'll go through and I'll treat it as a miniature test to myself. And I'll go through and I'll do question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and just answer them. And then at the end of that, I'll correct myself and I'll be totally honest with it. If I did not get it, or I know I got an answer because I guessed it, I will write those down or write them in OneNote, and then I'll go back through the chapter and find where that question was addressed and how I possibly have missed it. And I've told my other students this, and it has helped them out greatly. And they do understand the information a lot better when they use this method. Me personally, I'll typically read 2 additional times just because I'm a little bit psychotic like that. I like reading and really like knowing everything about the chapter. If I am not happy with my result, being that I've read the chapter, I've gotten the objectives correct, I've gotten the questions at the end correct, but I'm still kind of iffy on if I understand what they're trying to teach me, I will pull up another textbook. The great thing about Safari Books Online, I can do that. I'll pull up another textbook and see if that same objective is in the book that I'm looking at, and I'll read that too, just to get another perspective. So that's how I read a book, and that's how I tell my students to read books. So now what I'm going to take you through is the tools I use to simulate environments. Now again, just like Safari Books Online and Plural Site, I do pay for my tools. There is an alternative that I can tell you about right now when it comes to simulating environments, and that is a software called VirtualBox. VirtualBox is a software produced by Oracle, and it's totally free. You can just go to VirtualBox, I believe it's virtualbox.org, and you can download it, install it on your computer. It'll allow you to install virtual operating system environments and virtual machines, just like regular machines, and you can do everything that you would do to an actual physical box or computer. And that's not a bad thing, because everything in this industry is going virtualized. So getting some virtual experience is not a bad idea. And here is the website for that piece of software. I don't currently have it loaded on my workstation, but as I go through these videos, I will download it and I will take you through the proper installation of a virtual machine in both VirtualBox and in VMware Workstation for the purposes of simulating an environment while you study for an exam or go through my videos. Each video that I do that includes a workstation, whether it be Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 10, or even a Linux box, I will actually walk you through the installation process all the way from setting up a VirtualBox or VM Workstation virtual machine, all the way to the actual boot up process of that operating system. So have no worries, I will walk you through it. Again, you can get VirtualBox from Oracle, and that address again is virtualbox.org. Now if you got a little bit of extra cash lying around, which you may have because you're watching these videos or you're not going to a trade school where they charge you a ton of money, you might want to take a look at a software produced by VMware, and it's called a VMware Workstation. I think the current version that they're in is VMware Workstation 12.5, and this is another virtualization software, and it allows you, it's what's called a hypervisor. A hypervisor is a piece of software that acts in between your computer's hardware and the software that you're installing on the hypervisor to make the operating system that you're installing on the virtual machine think that it's got access to actual hardware. However, it doesn't. The hypervisor acts as an in-between. That may be a little bit too much information for you, but VMware Workstation is an awesome tool because unlike VirtualBox, you can actually simulate not only operating systems and workstations in different scenarios, different memory scenarios, CPU scenarios, hard drive scenarios, anything like that, but you can also simulate actual networks. So you can build full-on networks in the background and see how your system would work with another system. So this is a tool that I use professionally, and you will see me use a lot in these videos. And so going to that, here's the VMware Workstation. And VMware Workstation allows you, again, to have multiple systems set up. So I can do like a BIOS demo, I can do an EFI demo, I can do Ubuntu, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. And as you find out through this course, you'll need to know a lot about different operating systems because unlike a Microsoft test, a CompTIA test, or anything that's not industry specific is you have to learn multiple areas. So in Windows, I'll be covering Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows 10, and show you the tools as we go through the CompTIA certification, or at least the first certifications I'm going to go through on the site. Now that I've showed you the tools and resources that I use personally to study for an exam, it's important to cover one last thing. I can't stress enough how important it is to have hands-on experience. In this industry, you can read books, you can watch videos like mine, and still not understand how to work on computer systems as far as software or even on the hardware itself. Hands-on experience is invaluable. You will learn more by doing than you will by watching a video or reading the book. Reading the book and watching videos is a good foundation or setting point for the actual work to be done with hands-on. So you may be asking yourself, I'm watching this video from an iPhone or Android device. I don't have a computer at home. Well, if you're really interested in getting into the IT industry, you really need to look at buying a computer. Whether that computer be from a Goodwill or from a yard sale, you need to get your hands on actual physical equipment and get used to messing with it. The best lessons I ever learned was from breaking stuff and having to figure out how to fix it. If you're not comfortable breaking your own stuff, get in contact with family or friends that may own a computer and they've already done the process of breaking it for you. Offer to help them out with the computer. Always start with a disclaimer though that you are currently learning and you cannot be completely held responsible if you screw it up even more. The good news is most of the time when a relative or friend asks you to work on a computer, their computer is already messed up, so you can't really mess it up more than it already is. Again, check out your local Goodwill, check out the yard sales available, and get yourself some actual hardware that you can play with. And playing with the hardware is the best thing you can do to learning the craft. That's all for today, and until next time, I'll see you guys later, and I hope you've found this video useful and the videos to follow. Thank you very much.